Hello, students. Well, I've been really busy, as you can see, and I haven't had that much time to do some online lessons, but I thought now's a good chance to get back into it, and Hannah wanted to say hello as well. Say hello, Hannah. Hello. Okay, well, I'm going to pass off Hannah to my wife, and then we're going to start today's lesson. Just a moment. Okay, see you later, Hannah. Alrighty. Well, as you can see, I've been really busy and a little tired. So, just a moment. Coffee is really great in these tired times when you're really busy. And that's what today's lesson is about. It's about coffee. Do you like coffee? How often do you guys drink coffee? We'll talk about that later on in the lesson. But first, I wanted to talk about the legend that I read about recently concerning coffee. I don't know if you guys know about the kind of legend of the discovery of coffee, but when I read about this, I got really excited. I wanted to share it with you guys, and I thought, what better place than one of Max Sensei's online lessons. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about the legend and history of coffee. And of course, I'm going to read on my blog. I wrote this earlier today, and we're going to read the story and then do questions and vocabulary words. Of course, I'll leave a comment below the YouTube video, and it'll show you the link to come to this blog so you can read it yourself. But I'm just going to let you listen to me reading it for now. All right, let's get started. The legend and history of coffee. Coffee is enjoyed by many people all over the world. There is a lot of history following coffee all the way back to the 15th century in Arabia, which is modern-day Persia, Egypt, Syria, and Turkey. But before the 15th century, coffee's story is no longer history, but legend. The legend comes from Ethiopia. Have you ever heard of the name Kaldi? I'm sure you have, because they are popular coffee and import stores all around Japan. Well, that name wasn't made up for that coffee store, but the name Kaldi comes from an Ethiopian man who herded goats and made an amazing discovery. Before we start the story, please understand that this is a legend, which means there is no evidence that this is true. But I thought it was interesting anyway. Kaldi was a goat herder in Ethiopia around the 9th century, like the year 870 something AD. He let his goats wander the plains of Ethiopia, where the goats enjoyed eating grass and berries. One day, he noticed that his goats were eating a special kind of berry, which gave them a lot of energy. I'm sure you guessed what kind of berry it was. He noticed his goats jumping and dancing around. When night came, the goats wouldn't sleep and still enjoyed their dancing. This troubled Kaldi, since it was necessary for his goats to sleep through the night. He wandered the plains until he found these special berries, and he ate some. To his surprise, the berries gave him a burst of energy, and so he collected many of the berries and brought them to a local monastery to show the Islamic priests. He told the priests the story of his dancing goats and how the berries gave him a burst of energy as well. The Islamic priest disapproved of the berries. He took the berries from Kaldi and threw them into a fire to destroy them. After a few minutes, both the priest and Kaldi were surprised by an enticing aroma billowing from the fire. They quickly put out the fire and recovered the roasted seeds from the berries, ground them up and mixed them into a drink. And so, the first cup of coffee was brewed and drank by both Kaldi and the priest, much to their delight. The priest noticed that the cup of coffee gave him energy during his evening prayers, and so he introduced coffee to the other priests in the monastery. It became a habit of the priests to drink coffee so they wouldn't fall asleep and could pray into the night. All right, that's the story of Kaldi and the legend of Kaldi. But the real history of coffee isn't as exciting as Kaldi and the priest, but it is interesting. In Arabia, in the 15th century, coffee was made and drank in homes and cafes. The cafes became a central part of social gatherings and were nicknamed schools of the wise. At that time, trade was increasing around the world, and so word quickly spread of coffee. And by the late 17th century, the hot drink became popular across all of Europe, Asia, and India. The legend of Kaldi is such a famous story that there are many stores around the world named Kaldi Coffee or Kaldi's Coffee, or even the Dancing Goat. In fact, the biggest chain of coffee stores in Ethiopia is simply called Kaldi's. Let's enjoy some nice coffee and say thank you to that Ethiopian goat herder who discovered a delicious hot drink. That's great. Okay. So that's our blog article, and we're going to go over a couple vocab words. And then we're going to also go over some questions. If you want to respond to an email, if you want to respond to the blog or respond to the YouTube video, feel free to do any of those three things. You can just answer the questions when you see me next time in person. Okay, so vocabulary. There were 5 interesting or difficult vocab words in the story. I'm sure most of you know many of these words, but let's go over them one by one. The first is legend, a traditional story, sometimes regarded as historical, but not authenticated. Authenticated means there's no evidence for the story. So the legend of Kaldi and the dancing goats there's no evidence. So it's called a legend, not history. Okay, the word goat herder means a person who takes care or raises goats. A person who takes care of and raises goats. A goat herder. The same word for sheep is called a sheep herder or a shepherd. All right, the word monastery is a building occupied by monks living under religious vows. A monk is like a priest. So, I said priest in the article, but you can also say Kaldi and the monk, the Islamic monk living in the monastery. All right, the word enticing. Enticing means attractive, tempting. Looks like I made a little spelling mistake. That should be tempting. Sorry about that. Attractive, tempting, or alluring. This just means like if something is very enticing, you want to try that. If you see some enticing food, you want to eat that food. It looks really attractive and alluring. And finally, the 5th word is billowing. Billowing is something usually about smoke. Smoke is billowing from the chimney or something like that. It's smoke or air flowing outward with a rhythmic motion. So you know how if you see like a campfire, the smoke will kind of grow like that, like it kind of rhythmically moves. Woof, woof, woof. That means billowing smoke. All right, those are our 5 vocab words. Now let's look at our questions. So our questions, question number 1 is a very simple question. Do you like drinking coffee? I didn't drink coffee for a really long time, but recently I started drinking coffee more. I think the reason is because I have a very energetic baby, and she stays awake late at night, and I have to help her. So I'm a little tired during the daytime, and I need coffee to help give me the energy to keep teaching. So the question is, do you like drinking coffee? How do you like your coffee? And how often do you drink it? Question number 2. Do you think the story of Kaldi and his dancing goats is true or not? Why do you think so? Do you think Kaldi's story is true? Why not, or why? Number 3. Cafes were social gatherings in Arabia in the 15th century. Were there any similar social gathering places like cafes in your country? Let me repeat that one more time. I'm just a little distracted. I want to readjust the camera. Okay. All right. So, number 3. Cafes were social gatherings in Arabia in the 15th century. Were there any similar social gathering places like cafes in your country? So what I mean is people living in Arabia in the 15th century, they used to gather at cafes. It used to be a social place. People came and socialized with each other. Were there any similar historical social gathering places like cafes in your country? I don't mean like modern times. I mean like in the past, many years ago. Number 4, where do you like to go meet friends these days? Where do you like to go meet friends these days? Do you like to go to cafes, for example? Or do you have different groups? Or where do you like to go? All right, and finally, what is your favorite drink and why do you like it? So I recently started drinking coffee, but it's not my favorite drink. I think one of my favorite drinks is soda, cola, like Coke, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, Sprite, and so on. I like the bubbly feeling of carbonated drinks, tansan. And I also like the sugary kind of, sweet taste of Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Sprite or something. I know it's not the healthiest drink and I probably should drink more water, but sometimes as a special treat, I like to drink soda. Well, all right, that's it for Kaldi and the story of coffee. I'm really interested in the history of coffee, so I really enjoyed reading about Arabia in the 15th century and the spread of coffee culture to Europe and Asia and India in the 17th century. And I liked reading about how coffee houses were really popular places in Arabia. And I think still now, coffee is super popular in those areas. Like in Turkey, you heard of Turkish coffee and so on. But, different cultures have many different social gatherings. Like in England in the 1600s, pubs and beer halls and things like that were the popular place to meet and gather. Anyway. What did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy the story of Kaldi? And I'm looking forward to your comments and everything like that. All right, I'll see you guys next time for Max Sensei's online English lesson. See you.